welcome to this explainer. Today, we are stepping way back in time to unpack an ancient text that honestly reads almost exactly like a modern apocalyptic thriller. I mean, we're looking at this incredibly vivid, fascinating narrative that is just packed with terrifying visions, absolute cosmic collapse, and then ultimately a really powerful message of hope and grounding. If you've ever woken up in a cold sweat from a nightmare that just felt way too real, you're going to relate deeply to what we're about to explore. We're taking a journey together from a state of sheer absolute panic all the way to the quiet, reassuring calm of a morning sunrise.
Okay, let's dive into this, because the text absolutely does not hold back. Just imagine for a second the sheer, raw terror required to wake up screaming these exact words. The earth is destroyed. This isn't just your standard bad dream, right? This is a full-blown, visceral nightmare. The source text just drops us right into the emotional core of our narrator's panic. You can practically feel the words vibrating with anxiety. But to really understand how we got to this terrifying exclamation, we first need to understand exactly who is speaking and who he is speaking to.
So the narrator here is Enoch, and he's actually recounting his life story to his son, Methuselah. He frames his biography around two incredibly different visions he experienced when he was younger. The first one happened when he was just a little boy, innocently learning how to write. But the second vision, the one we're really zeroing in on today, happened later, right before he took a wife. You know, it's supposed to be this exciting coming-of-age moment, this massive life transition, but instead, it's suddenly and heavily hijacked by an awful, terrifying vision that literally shook him to his core and forced him to petition the Lord.
Now, a completely crucial point here is the setting, and the contrast is just brilliant. Think about it. Where does an apocalyptic nightmare strike? Not out on a chaotic battlefield, but in the ultimate place of safety. Enoch tells his son that he was simply reposing, resting comfortably, in the house of Malaleel, his grandfather. Usually, Grandpa's house is a sanctuary, right? It's a place for safety, comfort, maybe a really good afternoon nap. He's surrounded by family in this space of deep domestic security, but it's precisely in this quiet, cozy environment that his mind is completely overwhelmed by a vision of absolute, inescapable destruction.
And this brilliantly illustrates the cinematic cascade of cosmic destruction that Enoch witnessed in his dream. I mean, it's a complete inversion of the natural order. First, the heavens, the literal sky above, lower, disappear, and just crash onto the earth. And because of that immense impact, the earth itself is devoured into this massive yawning abyss. Then, the whole scale of the geography just collapses. Mountains descend onto other mountains, hills sink upon hills. And finally, the detail that brings it light down to eye level, high ancient trees are violently torn from their trunks, falling and sinking right into the abyss. It's a total sensory overload of planetary collapse. It's exactly the sequence that forces the speech into his mouth, making him cry out in his sleep that the earth is destroyed.
But then, the pacing of the text completely shifts. We move from that chaotic, loud, world-ending action to this incredibly quiet, calming, and deeply human dialogue. Imagine the breathless, sweaty panic Enoch is in, and then hear these grounding words from his grandfather, Malaleel, who wakes him up right there where he was sleeping. He just asks simply, "Why dost thou cry so, my son, and why dost thou lament so?" It's that perfect voice of steady wisdom cutting right through a massive panic attack. Enoch then pours out the entire terrifying vision to his grandfather, desperately seeking some kind of meaning in all that madness.
Now, Malaleel doesn't dismiss the dream. He doesn't just pat him on the head and say, "Oh, it was only a nightmare, go back to sleep." Instead, he totally validates the terror. He tells Enoch, "A terrible thing thou hast seen, my son." And then he interprets it. Malaleel explains that the immense power of this dream is actually a revelation concerning the secrets of all the sins of the earth. He's saying this dream is a direct warning. Because of these earthly sins, a massive destruction is preparing to descend from heaven, threatening to drop the earth terribly into the abyss. So the nightmare wasn't just random brain activity, it was a cosmic warning system.
But here is where Malaleel provides the most crucial pivot in the entire text. He shifts Enoch away from passive panic into active agency. He tells his grandson that because he is a believer, he actually has a responsibility to take action. He advises him to arise and petition the Lord of glory. And the goal of this prayer? It's not to magically wave a wand and stop the inevitable, but to pray that our remnant may remain on the earth and all the earth be not destroyed. It's a very real acknowledgement of the impending destruction from heaven, but it's paired with this desperate, active hope that something or someone will survive it.
So Enoch follows his grandfather's advice to the letter, building this really beautiful, structured sequence of actions to manage his existential dread. First, he arises and prays. He physically breaks the paralysis of his fear. Second, he petitions for that remnant to be saved, exactly as instructed. But the third step is what is so incredibly fascinating for us today. He actually wrote down his prayer for the generations of the world. He transformed his temporary, terrifying dream into a permanent, recorded plea for the future. A literal document he could then show to his own son Methuselah. He turns his intense anxiety into a lasting legacy of faith.
Now, what's really interesting about this comparison is what happens right after. Immediately after writing down his prayer, Enoch steps outside. Think about it. We have just spent all this time in the dark, chaotic reality of a nightmare, falling heavens, sinking mountains, a devouring abyss. But when Enoch steps out and looks up at the real heavens, what does he see? The waking world. He sees the sun rising gently in the east. He sees the moon descending quietly in the west. He sees a few lingering stars. It is the absolute antithesis of his dream. The text puts a huge emphasis on the reliable, cyclical nature of the world here. After a dream where the heavens literally fell out of the sky, Enoch takes deep, profound comfort in watching the sun behave exactly as it's supposed to. He observes that everything is exactly as he had known it from the first. The sun is led forth from the windows of the east, it ascends and rises on the surface of the heavens, it elevates itself, and crucially, it goes the path which is shown to him. The predictability of nature, the sheer obedience of the celestial bodies to their paths, perfectly grounds his catastrophizing mind.
And what is his natural reaction to seeing this beautiful, functioning, unbroken natural order? It's pure gratitude. Seeing the sun follow its proper path completely replaces his terror with reverence. He immediately blesses the Lord of the judgment and gives greatness to him. The absolute relief that the sky is still up there, that the earth hasn't been swallowed by an abyss, it inspires this profound moment of spiritual grounding and thankfulness.
So, thousands of years ago, a man recorded a panic-inducing nightmare of the world ending. He found comfort in the steady advice of his grandfather, took action by writing down his hopes, and ultimately found his peace simply by watching the sun rise exactly as it always had. It leaves us with a really powerful reflection. How do we use the reliable, daily order of nature to navigate our own deepest fears? The next time you feel totally overwhelmed by the chaos of the world, perhaps, like Enoch, all you really need to do is step outside, look at the sky, and watch the sun follow its path. Thanks for joining us for this explainer. We'll see you next time.